Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Cream of the Crop, a fantasy hockey podcast presented by Apples and Genos, the best fruit-based fantasy hockey podcast out there. Come on. I'm your host, Blake Creamer. Please follow me over on Twitter/X. It's at Blake Creamer AG. I love to chat with you on there. So hit me up in the DMs. All right. A&G also has a Discord. The link is in the description. You click on it, you get in there and you talk to like-minded fantasy managers. And fun fact, we are 4 subscriptions away from 1,000. Oh yeah. So that's amazing. So like I've been saying here, for that 1,000th member, all you have to do is screenshot it. You send it to me on Twitter or on the Discord and you get a limited edition oven mitt. All right. Apples and Genos oven mitt embroidered with the logo. You're going to love that. These are beautiful items here. So anyways, let me know about that. Also, as I yammer on here, head over to our YouTube. Apples and Genos has a YouTube as well. If you want to see my face saying stuff, it's not awesome, but the content's good. All right. Let's agree on that. Today, I've enlisted the help of a fantasy hockey stud to deliver some perfect holiday treats for your squads. He's a fantasy writer and editor for the Hockey News and host of the Sleepers and Keepers podcast, Jason Chen. How you doing, my man? Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Happy to be on.
My man. Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for making time. I really appreciate that. I love what you are doing over there at the Hockey News. I always check out your articles and I don't miss the Sleepers and Keepers. All right. I'm always on that. They just released an episode here. We're recording on the 18th, so you got to check that out. All right. How's that been going for you? You've been enjoying it, being in the podcast space here?
I am. So I have a little experience, but Mike and I, like just right off the bat, had some good chemistry.
Yeah.
I think we have some differing views, which is always nice. But in general, I think our strategies are pretty similar. So it's nice to have someone to always bounce ideas off and talk fantasy hockey like I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had Mike on the show a couple times. Love that guy. He's a beautiful man, and he cares about your fantasy hockey team. So that
He does.
is nice. Yeah, I've heard that he cares. You know, it's so there you go. But yeah, love having you in this fantasy hockey space here. It's just so helpful to have a couple guys like yourself doing that. All right. Before we get into what we're going to do here this episode, because this is the first time we're meeting Jason, I'd love to just kind of get your fantasy origin story. Why did you get into this crazy niche hobby and why are you in so deep the way I am?
Because hockey's awesome. That's like the basic answer, right? But like my fantasy journey actually started with fantasy baseball. And then it went to fantasy hockey because hockey's just that much better than baseball. I'm sorry, but it is.
Legit.
And I started like way back, like well before Yahoo is the way it is now. And a bunch of us from high school have been in the same league for like 10 plus years. And it just gets more intense and intense. And it adds an extra element when you're watching games. Like sometimes you're watching like, I don't know, the Ducks and Sharks and you're like, well, this is kind of nice. But when you have like in the past a Perry or a Getzlaff or Thornton, it kind of adds that extra juice in that game. So it's always fun that way.
Yeah, that's so true. Is there every person I've asked that question to, there's always like that one pool that you won early on and you're like, yes. It's like golf when you hit a good shot and you're like, okay, yeah, I can do that again. And then you never do it again. Right. But, did you have that experience too, like an early win where you're like, yeah, that's good. Like basically going to Vegas and just winning.
I feel like I'm the opposite. Like I've won a few leagues, luckily, but I always feel like coming in second or third drives me even more. Like next year, I want to be like, okay, I'm going to fix this. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes like the wheels completely fall off. But I think it's just that competition that I kind of like. So when you're finishing first, everyone, puts a target on your back. So I kind of like being that second place where I can go after people.
Damn, so inspirational, Jason. Well done. Yeah. Plus, if you get in second place, there's a better chance your trades might go through. God, in my home league that I play in, a bunch of buddies of mine been playing for like a decade, basically.
Mhm.
Every trade gets vetoed, right? And anything
Really?
I'm involved in, they're like, no, because I've won. I won 3 years in a row, and then I won a playoff pool on one of those years as well. So like I had a good stretch, and then like I've been terrible basically the other year. So let's disagree on that. But, I got to shout out my wins here. But yeah, basically because I won now, can't get a trade through for the life of me. This is terrible.
That's really interesting. In my league, the one I've been in the longest, we have no vetoes. You reap what you sow. So if you make a bad trade, you sleep with it. And I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, it's one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't want to go off at the tangent here, but yeah, vetoes in fantasy hockey. What are you
Yeah.
doing? Get your fingers out of my fantasy team. Giggity, that sounds terrible, but seriously, let me make some mistakes and blow it up. All right, what are you doing? All right, but that's we're digressing. I do that, Jason. I'm sorry about that. I
That's
digress,
okay.
but that's fine. Actually, I'll ask you one more question before we go on. How are your fantasy teams doing this year? You feeling good about your squads?
Pretty good. So in one league, I'm actually 10-0, which is
Oh,
like pretty
nice.
amazing.
That's awesome.
So, and then in the other league, in a roto leagues, I find are so hard. And this is the one that I've been in the longest. I think fourth or fifth right now. I just made a huge trade. Ilya Samsonov was part of it, and I started him against the Jackets. Gets lit up for 5 goals right away.
Oh
Probably
man.
going to lose his job to Martin Jones at some point.
That,
And yeah, it happens. Like I make a big trade. I think, I've, cobbled together a team and then it just blows up in my face. So that one I'm a little worried about. So I'm doing okay. Like mixed bag, but okay.
yeah, absolutely. That's fantasy hockey, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
we do all this work, and then all of a sudden, Ilya Samsonov goes out and just craps all over your fantasy team for the week. It's like, thank you very much, my man. What are you doing?
I should have seen that coming though. Like
Yeah,
honestly,
it,
sometimes.
best laid plans. Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to see that stuff coming.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Before we get into our must adds, I'll give you sort of what we're going to talk about in this episode now that I've rambled on here. Jason and I are going to talk about some must add players. We didn't add any kind of rostership clip on Yahoo. So these are just players that I think and Jason thinks are under rostered on Yahoo. So we're going to talk about them, give you your reasons why. We're also going to talk about some must drop players. And when we say must drop, we don't exactly mean you just drop them off your team willy-nilly. All right. It has to make sense for your team. We're just saying like you don't have to hold on to these guys at all costs. Does that sound reasonable, Jason?
Sounds reasonable. There's no absolutes in fantasy, I find.
But we want absolutes, don't we? We're like, tell
Yeah,
me what to do. Damn it. Drop him. Okay, I'm dropping him. Click.
true.
No, please
We
don't do
want the
that.
validation. Yeah.
Yeah, I always want the validation. Yeah, I mean that's why I have a podcast, basically. Yeah, negative reviews really hurt my feelings, so that's fine. But let's move on. All right, I want to talk about just a quick piece of news here and get your take on it here, Jason. So DJ Smith, the former head coach of the Ottawa Senators, obviously relieved of duty this morning after having a fun practice with the team. That's a kind of a weird piece there, but I just wanted to get your take on the firing and what you think the outlook looks like on Ottawa moving forward.
Well, considering this is the fourth in-season coaching change we've had this year, and all three teams that had changed coaches got a huge coaching bump. So I think similar here. What gives me a little more optimism, even though Jacques Martin hasn't been a head coach in like a decade, is that if you want to play good offense, sometimes it starts in your own end. So I feel like if the Sens can clean up their own end, maybe get a few more saves from their goaltending,
Yep.
they can go up front and attack more. This is kind of like the Canucks thing, where like Tocchet comes in, cleans up the defense a little bit. The less time you're chasing the puck in your own zone, the more time you're going in offense. So I'm hopeful for the Senators. I don't think it's too late, but it has been coming for a while now for DJ Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw, Steve Staios was talking about sort of his reasoning behind why he waited so long, and it was sound. Like they had a little stretch there where they were kind of picking it back up, and then they fell off again. And I guess he was kind of giving them that one last hurrah. But yeah, it's going to be interesting here. I'm glad you brought up the Canucks because that's what I've noticed here in Vancouver big time. And I noticed that someone mentioned that I don't remember the tweet, but someone talked about Jacques Martin and the structure. I think he said that's what he wanted to bring there, and that's what teams need. Right. And it's weird to me, like just as a fan watching hockey, you think all teams have structure, don't you? It's like, well, but some don't. Like the Canucks did not have structure under Bruce Boudreau. They just didn't. They were doing read-based systems. They were, whatever you think is good, my man, you go do that. It's like, no, you actually need to do like some X's and O's, who's doing what, and like really lay out the boundaries. And I hope that that's what Jacques Martin brings because this team is too talented, at least offensively, and they got some studs on the back end too. So I don't know. Do you think this is going to help their fantasy value, some of their top players and even their defensemen, guys like Jake Sanderson and Jacob Chychrun?
I definitely think so. I really wonder what it's going to do to their goaltending because they seem to be locked in with Korpisalo and Forsberg, and they haven't been great in fantasy so far. But maybe the plus minus gets better. Maybe the offense gets a little more rush chances because they can break out of their zone with a little more cleanly. And with Jacques Martin, like no one's ever really said like playing under him is really fun, like Boudreaux.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do need it. I think when all players are on the same page, it helps a lot in the long run. So I'm hopeful. It'll be really interesting to see how they do that because it doesn't come overnight, that change. So I mean, Shabbat's out too, and they've got to work him back in when he comes back. So it's going to be really interesting. And like you said, they're way too talented.
Yep, absolutely. I think I'm looking forward to seeing what Timmy Stutes does. I mean, he's underachieving a little bit with his goal scoring, so maybe he can kind of get something going there. And maybe we'll talk about a few other Ottawa Senators today. Maybe we will. I don't know. All right, buddy. I've digressed enough. Let's get to biz. We got to talk about our must-add players, and I want to start with one of mine here, Jason. I want to talk about Jordan Kyrou of the St. Louis Blues. He is currently 74% rostered on Yahoo, so that's reasonable, right? We're not, but he needs to be rostered more than that, right? For me personally, I really believe that things have turned a corner for Jordan Kyrou, and with all the things that went on with the Berube firing, like the crowd booing him, his comments, and then coming back and scoring a goal and getting the ovation, right? Like, I think there's going to be a mental switch here, plus the new coach bump, right?
Yeah.
So at least mentally, right? So that's one of the reasons I'm kind of looking at Jordan Kyrou. But even further to that, like if you look at the last 3 weeks for St. Louis as a team, just dug in here a little bit. 5-on-5, they're fifth in Corsi for per 60, which is very strange. That's very un-St. Louis Blues of them, right? This is a team that usually lives off of efficiency, right? Low shots and then high shooting percentage. That's kind of something that they've done historically. So it seems to me like they're kind of figuring out things a little bit more on offense. And I do want to quickly just go through some metrics here that, we like to look at here at Apples and Ginos, Jason, just in terms of predictive metrics and their shots and goal per 60, individual Corsi for per 60, and individual scoring chances for per 60. So Jordan Kyrou in the last 5 games got 4 points, which is pretty nice. Just under 18 minutes average time on ice. But these numbers look pretty damn good. He's 30th overall in the league in shots and goal per 60. He's 13th overall in individual Corsi for per 60. And he's 19th overall in individual scoring chances for per 60. And all that with, a pretty low IPP. His IPP over the last 5 is 57. It's usually higher. It's usually around 70. His shooting percentage is 5.6. That should be higher, right? So, and his numbers are similar season long, right? The big issue with Kyrou that I've seen this season is his deployment, where he's like he hasn't had the top line, and he usually doesn't get top power play anymore, at least under Berube, right? So now this guy Drew Bannister comes in and he's given him back his top line, but he's still got him toiling away on power play too. So all that said, I think that Kyrou is a legit. He's a potential star, right? But he needs some things to start going right for him. I think, Nate has said that this guy is, an 80 to 90 point guy if everything goes right. And I tend to agree with him. I don't know. What is your take on Jordan Kyrou with the coaching change and just the player in general?
Well, I mean, he did score at a point per game pace for the past 2 seasons, right? So the talent is there. I'm with you on the shooting percentage. I'm a big shooting percentage guy.
Yeah.
Just because it's easy to understand and it's very, very obvious. We can dig into analytics and sometimes it's luck based, but a 5-point something shooting percentage for a guy who's always been a pretty good finisher and for someone who actually puts a lot of shots on net. I think he's tracking for like 240 shots on goal or so, a little lower than last year, but still very much in the top tier. He had 9 shots last game. So yeah. I'm with you. I think he struggled under Berube because probably Berube was a little more demanding. And when a new coach comes in, obviously you want to impress your new coach, but sometimes this new coach comes in and kind of loosens the reins a little bit. So I can see Kyrou, being a really good player going forward. I don't know if he has enough time to get that shooting percentage back up, but I do think he's going to be better in the second half than the first half.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, 74% is just too low for this guy. He needs to be rostered. There's no question to me.
Yeah, Yahoo's a bit weird with the roster percentage. Sometimes I feel like depending on the leagues or depending on how active your league is, it's not the most accurate indicator of how popular he is. But I mean, going into the season, he should have been close to 100%, right? A point per game guy, a young guy on the Blues. And with the Blues too, like you get the feeling that they're kind of figuring out their new identity. So maybe their new identity is more of a free-flowing sort of offense first and having Kyrou and Robert Thomas leading the charge.
Yeah, absolutely. I just cannot see this shooting percentage sticking. And then also, just real quick, like he's shooting at 5-on-5, a career high 12.6 shots on goal per 60. I mean, that's really good. So something we note here at Apples and Ginos is anything 10 and up is like an elite shot generator, right? And Kairu's cooking at 12.6 right now. So yeah, but he's just getting incredibly unlucky. So anyways, shout out to Jordan Kyrou, buddy. Thank you for your service. All right. It's going to be good. I think he's on the way up. I'd like to move on to one of your picks here, Jason. So why don't you bring us one of the first guys you wanted to talk about?
Well, I did just mention, but Robert Thomas, same with the St. Louis Blues, point per game player, number one center. Actually, for a guy who doesn't shoot very much, pretty good at finishing. And you that shot volume has increased a little. So he was like, I think like 1.5 shots per game last season. Now it's closer to 2. With Kyrou going off, them playing together at 5-on-5. I think there's a symbiotic relationship there. Robert Thomas, I think, is one of the more underrated playmakers in the league. You watch him play, and he's got great vision, great hands. And someone's got to generate offense on the Blues. You look up and down that lineup, there's not a lot of offense. So Thomas and Kyrou have to be those guys.
Yeah, I love this pick. This is someone I've been talking about this year too. I've talked about him in a couple other episodes. Like, yeah, this guy needs to be on a roster, no question. It's interesting to me that Kyrou is rostered more than Robert Thomas is because at least for season performance so far, Robert Thomas is killing it. I mean, this guy's on what is this? What is his pace? It's like 87. Yeah, he's on an 87
point per game.
Thomas. So yeah, I mean, and he's rostered lower than Jordan Kyrou. So I mean, do we have a bunch of analytic beauties out there rostering Jordan Kyrou? Is that what's happening there, Jason? I don't know.
I think part of it is because Robert Thomas is a center, and it's such a deep position. So maybe it's discounted. And also Kyrou gets more shots on goal. I know most leagues have shots on goal, so a little advantage to Kyrou, but as far as centers go, I think Robert Thomas deserves to be there as much as Kyrou.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is a guy who does live on efficiency for sure. Like it was like pulling teeth to get Robert Thomas to take a shot. Like, buddy, and you just pass the puck into the net, like hard. Can you just whip up? I don't know what's going on, but I love to see that this man is shooting a lot more. He's averaging a career high shots on goal per 60 at 5-on-5. And he's really taking off on the power play with his shots on goal. Mm-hmm. Anyways, he doesn't have any goals yet. So I think there's a little bit of headroom for Robert Thomas as well. Like in 30 games, he only has 4 power play points, 0 goals. That's not going to stick. He's not going to score 0 goals on the power play. This guy's he's kind of changed his game a little bit, and the deployment is insane. So I love this player. I'm glad that you brought attention to him. And I mean, out of Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, who are you picking first?
Thomas.
easy peasy. I think Kyrou has the upside, but Thomas is solid as a rock. I mean, his shooting percentage is super solid. Like, one nice thing about Thomas is he's still shooting 17%, which is really efficient, but he's shooting more. So he's shooting more and converting at the same rate. So yes, please. That sounds nice to me. I'm a big fan of the player, and I'm interested to watch St. Louis moving forward with this new coach bump. I mean, things were a bit stinky there with Berube. I think he definitely kind of lost the room a little bit. So hopefully this guy comes in and, like you said, loosens the reins a little bit, and just it's a bit lighter there in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. But they've been playing well. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about my next player, which is from the LA Kings, Trevor Moore. Okay. This man is 63% rostered. Okay, what does he have to do to get rostered more than 63%? I mean, he's leading the team in goals, for God's sake. This is, that's not really enough. But, I do think that it's probably due to the way that LA roll their lines, right? It's kind of like a top 9 there in LA, isn't it, Jason?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But Trevor Moore, really underrated. People think he's a middle 6 forward, but he's a legit top 6 winger. And I think just because he's undrafted and he's from California, didn't have the most standout junior career, I think he gets really overlooked. But the Kings love these kind of toolsy players. Like Arvidsson's another one. I know he's hurt, but guys who can play both ends of the ice, there's a bit of a physical edge. Moore's not a big guy, but he's hard to move. And I really like what he brings to the table in terms of fantasy, because he brings all sorts of things to the table. Like, you get some hits, you get some shots, and you get some goals. And he's playing with one of the teams with probably the deepest centers in the league right now. So you're not hurting for someone to play with.
Yeah, that's so true. And another thing I really like about Trevor Moore is that first off, he's on a 70-point pace, which is excellent, right? But
Mhm.
he's doing that with real limited power play deployment
Yeah.
or points, right? So it's kind of like as is, we've got a guy on a 70-point pace. So what happens, when injuries eventually happen, or they go into a little slump and they decide to change the power play up? Like, what happens if this guy gets some reps on power play one? What happens if he gets some reps, in the top line there? If crazier things have happened. So that all this to say that I like just his floor is solid as is. Like, we can take this player as is, and then if anything happens, that like his ceiling could go even higher. So I do want to just kind of shout out one of the reasons that I target Trevor Moore is again the advanced metrics, right? So the last 5 games, this guy's only got 2 goals, which isn't so good, right? But his deployment's solid, 18 minutes. But check this out, Jason. 9th overall in the league in shots on goal per 60. So he's a shot monster for sure. 16th overall in individual Corsi 4 per 60, and 25th overall in individual scoring chances for Trevor Moore. All right.
Pretty
Like
good.
that's elite stuff right there.
Yeah.
So, and then on the season, yeah, like I said, 70-point pace, but he's 28th overall on the season in shots on goal per 60. That's excellent. And then 38th overall in individual Corsi 4. So this guy's putting so many pucks towards the net, so many pucks on net. You got to shoot to score. It's a simple statistic, but damn, this guy's doing it in spades. And like I said, I think there's some room, there's some headroom there for some power play performance. So I don't know. I'm big on Trevor Moore. Do you have this guy anywhere, Jason?
I don't. But in a deeper league, he should be rostered. Like if you're in a 12 or 14 team league, because I don't find him streaky. Like there's always nights where he does something, right? Like even
Yep.
when he in that Winnipeg game, he was I think -3, but he had 8 shots on goal. So you're getting something there most of the time anyway. And like you said, the deployment's good. He's already got 5 power play points on limited time. So if he can get more than that, he's going to blow whatever his career best was out of the water. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I can't imagine it's too high.
Yeah, he should smash it this year. I think it was something like
Yeah.
10 or something like
Yeah,
that.
something
So
like that.
it's not going to be a problem. And the power play is interesting there in LA. Like they do kind of a 1A, 1B, but it's not that typical, 70% power play share, 30%
Mhm.
power play share. It's more like 55-45, which is kind of nice for those guys on that second unit, right? Guys like, again, Victor Arvidsson, who you talked about, he lives off that. On that second power play, he was still cooking like 20 power play points last season. Shout out to Victor Arvidsson. See you at the party, Victor. All right, let's move on. I want to talk about your next player there, Jason, if you got a guy there.
Yeah, I do. Kind of a similar vein. Tom Wilson,
Oh, yeah.
63% rostered in Yahoo leagues. He's having a bit of a resurgent season. And I think he's kind of gotten forgotten because he's been injured for so much of the past few seasons. But you look at that top line with Wilson, Ovechkin, and Dylan Strome, and usually Wilson's kind of like the third wheel, kind of the meat and potatoes guy. But I'm starting to think that he's probably the best player on that line now. 10 goals through 28 games. He's on track to smash his career high. So he used to be one of those like 200 hit, 20 goal guys. Now imagine if he ups that to 30 goals and 200 hits. He's going to be a banger league beast, basically. Power play one, top line. I'm a little wary of the regression on expected goals.
Mm.
But sometimes these players can keep the hot streak going on for the entire season, and the shooting percentage isn't out of line. It's right near his career average, actually.
Yeah. No, I love that you're highlighting this player, like, and obviously in banger leagues. Like I have him. I only play one true banger league, and I'm
Mhm.
not the biggest fan of that format, like penalty minutes, all this, but I've been having a blast with it, man. But
I love
mostly
banger
because
leagues.
yeah, you know what? I'm a bit I'm kind of coming around on that. Like it's also a 16 teamer, so it's like
Oh, okay. That's hard.
it's yeah, it's quite hard, but I mean, there's so much value on the wire. Like I picked up a guy like Jeremy Lozon,
Mm,
halfway through the season and just kept them. I got Jake McCabe now who's smashing for me. But anyways, I got Tom Wilson. He's ranked 8th overall in the format.
yeah.
So
I
this
mean,
guy,
when you can get those kind of hits and goal scoring, he's a unicorn. There's not many players in the league who can do that.
yeah, that's so true. And I know what you mean. Like any player on Washington to me right now, like just the way that they're going, they have the worst puck luck in the league. Their power play is putrid. All right. But it's not for lack of chances or shots, right? It's just they are not scoring. And you can point to one man who's probably kind of driving that bus, off a cliff, and that's Alex Ovechkin. But I love Ovechkin. But yeah, he's not been converting even close to historic numbers, right? So, his line mates are going to kind of feel that burn a little bit, right? And Tom Wilson, like you said, he's definitely kind of upped his game here. Interesting piece on Tom Wilson. His IPP is higher than it's ever been before. He's not a high IPP guy this year. Like, all the numbers are kind of the same, but his IPP is much higher. I think he's cooking around 78%, which is pretty damn high for a player like this, right? So that says to me that they're prioritizing Wilson a little more in the offense, and that's great for him, right? Like, they signed him to a big contract. He's a beefer. He's just sounds like everybody on the team really loves this guy too. Everyone on any other team hates his guts, but he's on.
It's usually
he's
a
on
good
your
sign.
yeah. So people love this player, but I actually think that he has, definitely some regression, maybe with the expected goals. But if Ovechkin could finish a shot, or then he can pot a rebound here, like that might not be that crazy. You know what I mean? Like, they've been getting crazy chances. Ovechkin has been about a snake bit as a player can get this season, and it's really rough to see.
I'm a little skeptical about Ovechkin. So Caps games aren't as fun as they used to be. And I'm watching Ovechkin and I'm seeing him load up in his office. I don't see the same kind of shot in terms of accuracy. I think teams expect it. And I don't think he has a playmaker really to set him up. I think Dylan Strom's a fine player, but he's not peak Nicholas Backstrom, right? And I think it's kind of telling that Dylan Strome has twice as many goals as Ovechkin. So that's why I think Wilson's probably the best player. I feel like a lot of the play kind of runs through him. And Ovechkin, you can see he's trying, but he is old. And Father Time is undefeated. And I wonder if this is the season where he really starts to fall off. And you can see the hits too, where they've been trending down. And that's kind of a sign where maybe physically, mentally, he's just not up to it like he used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if I feel still decent about Ovechkin, but I definitely agree with you that he doesn't really have anyone to play with, right? So if you don't have any other threats on the power play, and you know what Ovechkin's going to do, how are you going to defend that? You're basically just going to go over to Ovechkin's side and make it so he stops taking one-timers, right? Like, it's pretty simple stuff. So, I mean, I can understand in that regard there, and they definitely, like, that part is absolutely true, I think. And like, he's regressing for sure. He's not the same player, but the metrics are still decent for Ovechkin. Like, he's still putting shots, not to the level that he has historically, but still more than fine for him to pot 30 goals a season. Right. And now he's on pace for something stupid right now, which is ridiculous. But all that to say, Tom Wilson's a beauty. And I think he has a little bit of a headroom to score a bit more. Like, he's shooting 12.2%. Last 3 seasons, he shot up around 15%, almost 16%. So, that could be due to just the talent level again on Washington that we talked about. And John Carlson too. What the hell? Come on. And, like, he's good. Like, we got still some pieces here. What's going on? We got bits and pieces, but Tom Wilson's the last man standing. He's kicking ass, and we like this man. All right, let's move on. Shout out to Tom Wilson. All right, last player I wanted to bring to your attention of the Winnipeg Jets, Gabe Vilardi. It's the Vilardi party, and we got to talk about it. All right.
I love this player.
Yeah, I'm stoked on this. I had a really interesting conversation with Nate at the beginning of the year. We were sort of pontificating who would do better, Mom Spaghetti, Cole Perfetti, or Gabe Vilardi. And I fell on the Vilardi side, and he took Cole Perfetti, and I'm reaping the rewards. All right. Although Cole Perfetti is a fine player as well and going to be beauty in this league. But I just feel like the Jets brought this guy in to be on power play 1 and to play on line 1. And that's the treatment that he's received so far. And, it's bad news for the team when Kyle Connor goes down, but I think that's been real good news for Gabriel Vilardi, right? I just like what I've seen from this player since returning from injuries, and the last 5 games in particular. So let's take a look at his metrics, shall we? All right. Last 5 games for Gabe Vilardi, 8 points. Yes, please. All right. 5 goals, 3 assists, just under 20 minutes, average time on ice. I love that. Shots on goal per 60, 50th overall. He's 83rd in individual Corsi 4 per 60, and then 22nd overall in individual scoring chances for. So that line is cooking. And then if you look at his on ice numbers, damn, Corsi 4 per 60 is 30th in the league, and then scoring chances 4 per 60 is 30th as well. He is redlining in his shot percentage and his on ice shooting percentage over the last 5 games, but that line's been cooking. And so it's him, it's Ehlers, and it's Mark Scheifele. I don't know. What do you think about this player? Like, he is rostered currently at 36%. So that's way too low, right? Like, where are you at with Gabe Vilardi? Give me your take on that.
That's ridiculous to me. Vilardi was one of the guys I picked to have like a breakout season. And if you look at his analytics. I know it was only a 3-game stretch, but I think his Corsi was like 70 or 80%. It was ridiculous. He hurt his knee, came back, but I was on the lookout for this player. And Connor being out sucks, but it also just means Velarde shoots back up to the top line way faster than you normally would.
Yep.
The more surprising thing to me is Nikolai Ehlers. Rick Bowness is actually giving him ice time. And if you look at Velarde's deployment too, like he's not getting a whole lot of ice time all the time. Sometimes he's at 16, 17 minutes. So you imagine if he can get to maybe 18, probably not 19 because Rick Bowness is stingy that way. I feel like Velarde can put up a lot of points. And they've got, I mean, credit to Perfetti and Nemesnikov, who's playing really well, but they have that one scoring line and they have to lean on them a lot. Velarde should be rostered in all leagues, in my opinion. I think he just got forgotten because he got injured so early in the season.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And yeah, I totally agree with your point on his deployment, but we have seen some signs of life there as well. Like in the last 4 games, he's got 2 games over 21 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. But then the other 2 were in the 16 minutes. So, thank you, Rick Bonus. What are you doing?
I mean, those were blowout wins, so I kind of get it. But those are the games where I wished he played more so he can pile in points.
Yeah, exactly.
Up even more.
Rick Bonus doesn't give a damn about our fantasy teams. And
No.
that's just hurtful, Rick. All right. I'm going to definitely send Rick an email. Just give him a piece of my mind. I'm sure, also he listens. He's a big listener to the show as well. So shout out to you, Rick. All right. No hard feelings. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm loving Ehlers as well. I did manage to snake Ehlers in a couple spots almost right when Connor was injured. So sort of preemptively. Did you get Velarde or Ehlers anywhere? Because I think obviously for this week, these guys are amazing streamers. But I think they're streamers with benefits. They might be holds really until Connor comes back. Like nothing's a guarantee, but this has been a great start.
Yeah, so I happen to have all 3.
Oh my man!
Kyle Connor was injured. I picked up Velarde, and I also just picked up Ehlers. Ehlers was just floating around, and Velarde obviously being rostered in the majority of leagues he's not rostered, so it was easy to pick him up. But I needed a Kyle Connor replacement, and I look at the numbers and I go, "Hey, I don't think there's anyone else that's better."
Yep. No, it's so true. Ehlers, one of the most frustrating players in fantasy.
Oh my
God. I don't know about you, but like I get
burned
questions
so many times.
Yeah. I roster him. I keep singing the man's praises, but it's really not his fault. I blame Rick Bonus. All right. Yeah. But I mean, who knew the man needed to play on the top line and top power play to perform? Wow, what a concept. All right. Yeah. I think it would be a funny experiment if fantasy managers could just coach a team for one night. You know what I mean? And just see like what would happen, like 40 minutes, Nikolai Ehlers, like just break the record, just till the wheels fall off, injure the man. I don't know what's going on. All right. Let's move on. I want to talk about your last player here that you brought to the table. What do you got, Jason?
Well, we spoke of the Sens earlier, but Josh Norris, again, a banger league guy for me. 33% rostered in Yahoo leagues. I think it should be a lot higher than that. I'm not sure why he's not rostered I know center's a deep position, but for a guy who has 60-point upside, 200 plus shots, plenty of face-off wins, I really like what he brings to the table. Just a very high floor, so you'll get something every night. And he's a guy I think could get a Jacques Martin bump because I think the two-way play will improve with Norris. And I think having 2 good centers, maybe Martin comes in and evens it out a little bit. So I like Norris. I wonder if he's going to get the coaching bump. I take a gamble on him just for that reason. But overall, even if he doesn't get that bump, I think he's a very productive fantasy player.
Yeah, especially at his rostership, like 34%. What?
Yeah.
This makes no sense. This guy's in the top 6 on what should be an explosive offensive team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they have not performed to expectations. They just bounced their coach. So, but again, this is a guy, this could be a prime candidate for like major beneficiary of this coaching change. And like you said, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to point out power play 1-2 with Stutzler and Batherson to Chuck. So
there you go. Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. And that's what keeps, like you said, that high floor. Like this guy's got power play 1. Bang. Like the Senators don't have a problem on the power play. Mm-hmm. In fact, the Senators, this is something I've been talking about for a few episodes, but last season they were the number 1 team in actual power play time on ice. Like the amount of power play, but like the most time on ice. And they're leading again this year. So they draw a lot of penalties. They're actually on the power play more than any other team in the league, right? So I'm you got a spot on power play 1 there, you're looking good. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Josh Norris does a lot of other things. I think his upside is probably higher than 60. I think he can go 65, 70, ceiling Josh Norris. Right. But he also bangs. He hits. This could be like an 80 hit guy, 100 hit guy, maybe if he plays to his potential. So I'm a big fan of the player as well. Nate and I do this little thing on our waiver show. We do like a streamer death match where you pick a guy for the upcoming week and a certain scoring system, and whoever guy gets more points, you win. I'm smashing him currently. But nice. Yeah, last week he picked Josh Norris and I picked Casey Middlestad, and yeah, I just got trucked. So, that's fine. But I got no hard feelings for Josh Norris. I got him in 2 spots. So I was happy with the production. Cool. All right. Well, that is that. And now we got to talk about some must drop players. We did define what that means. But before we do that, we did talk a little bit about Alex Ovechkin. So thank you for that, Jason. I wanted to get to your take on another player that's really been underachieving and where you're at with him. And that is Timo Meier. I know I was listening to your pod today and you kind of gave a little update on Meier. Why don't you share that with us and sort of your thoughts on this player?
Yeah, sure. I think maybe I didn't speak too clear, but I didn't drop Meier. He's too good to drop, but I did trade him. Okay. I did trade Timo Meier. I'm just sometimes when a player is not performing, you kind of have to watch him play. So I watched the Devils play and I watched Timo Meier play, and he's disinterested. He's not engaged. I think Toffoli and Bratt are so much better. And I really think that he's going to be the big signing in a few years from now that we see and look back in hindsight and say, you know what, maybe that was probably the wrong move for the Devils. I just don't think he's going to be able to turn it around based on his body language. Of course, expert body language here. Not at all, but sometimes you watch a player just kind of will go through the motions and you just wonder, like, is it going to happen this year or not? And I don't think it is. So, and speaking of the Devils, there's so much competition for minutes. I don't see the hits. I don't see the shooting. I don't see the goals. So I decided to give up on him.
Yeah, you know what? And it's totally fair. I thought I heard you say you dropped him. So it's nicer to hear. A drop is interesting. It's not a whiff by any means. And that's why I wanted to bring up the conversation, because this man's done nothing for like 7 straight games.
Yeah. So if you're in like a 10-team league or 8-team league, I think you can justify it. In a 12 or 14, you're better off holding on to him and hoping he comes back if you can't trade him. And if you're trading him, you're probably trading him like at a low value. I traded in my keeper league, so I had to give up a high draft pick the other way. But I didn't mind it because I'm in contention and I just want to get rid of this guy because he was a waste of space.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? You brought up a really good point that I'd just like to reiterate. When a player's not performing, watch him play hockey. That's just common sense. But that's probably not something that we all do as fantasy managers, right? Yeah. What does this guy look like out on the ice? Like, I'm not the biggest proponent of like the eye test, or certainly not just like the eye test and that's it, right? But we got metrics. We're looking at what he's been doing the last few games. Go watch this player play a game, because those things that you mentioned, they're noticeable. Right? Aren't they? Like, yeah, this guy's lollygagging around out there. He looks disinterested, whatever. That's going to help you make your decision. So I just wanted to reiterate that piece. I think that's really good. On Meier here really quick, like on the season, some of the metrics are still there, right? Like, this is a guy who he got major, like crazy deployment in San Jose. And that's really what's fallen off here in New Jersey. And kind of surprisingly, actually, like, he's not even power play 1, which, I didn't see that coming, but I mean, he's not the only one, right? Like, before he got injured, Dougie Hamilton, not power play 1. What? What are we doing? But they're the number 1 power play in the league. So, what the hell do I know? But yeah, so that all that to say, like, this guy on the season, Timo Meier, still 50th overall in shots to goal per 60, 17th overall in individual Corsi for, and 17th overall in individual scoring chances for. So that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
That's holdable. That's, like you said, in a 12-team league, it's going to hurt, but you kind of have to wait it out, right? And hope that he sort of makes his way back on a power play 1, but definitely manage your expectations with this player. He's not going to be the 90-point guy that a lot of people were calling for in the preseason.
Yeah. So the funny thing about Timo Meier is, for a guy who supposedly is really good at scoring goals, not the best finisher. Compared to the rest of the league, kind of just okay.
Mhm.
And his shot volume isn't where it was before when he was in San Jose, which is a given. But I thought late last season he kind of picked it up with the Devils, and I thought he'd maybe pick it up where he left off, but it just hasn't come. And we talked about the other player without the shot volume, with a low finishing percentage. I mean, you're not going to score goals.
Yep. No, it's common sense. And my thing with Timo Meier too is like they're invested into him for a little bit. So I feel like at some point in the season we're gonna get 20-minute Timo Meier for a little bit. We're gonna get power play one Timo Meier, but I don't know. There's no guarantees, right?
Yeah.
And there's no guarantees he does anything with that, right?
Yeah.
They have so many other players, like you said, that can do stuff. Like they don't need to prioritize Meier. They got amazing players like having amazing seasons, right? Like guys like Bratt, obviously Jack Hughes is crushing. So, anyways, that's a
No
nice
hits.
little.
Sorry.
Yeah. Where's the hits,
Yeah.
buddy? I mean, damn. That's something too. Like when your deployment goes down and you're a periph kind of guy. Yeah, your periffs are going to go down as well, right? You need to be on the ice to hit people, right? So if you're playing 4 less minutes or 3 less minutes time on ice, yeah, the hits are going to go down. So there you go. Sorry, everybody who owns Timo Meier. I have him in one spot, and I'm not loving it, but that's fine. All right, let's move on to our must-drop players. And the first guy I want to talk about, Jason. Oh, this kills me. Big Kuzi, or as we've been calling him, Bench Kuzi, Andrei Kuzmenko, 68% rostered. Oh, this sucks because this is a player I loved last year. I mean, we all know that Kuzmenko overachieved last year with the shooting percentage, 27%. It was kind of the story of the offseason, right? But I really did think that after the signing, like they chose to sign him, they chose to move on from Bo Horvat. So he's a part of the future here. I thought he was going to get some more ice time, right? So I thought that would sort of buffer the low shot volume. And I also thought he would shoot just a little bit more, right? Because Kuzmenko, I mean, in his big year, he shot 1.8 shots per game. That's not good. Well, what's he shooting this year? 1.4. Oh God, no. So the things that I was hoping would happen are not happening. He's getting less ice time and he's shooting less. So he's currently rocking line 4, but he's still on power play 1. So Talk is throwing him a bone there. But this is a player that's he's dealing with some confidence issues clearly, and the rest of the team is flying. So that's kind of a nice place for Kuzmenko to be because he doesn't have to hear the questions every night like why can't you score? Why can't you score? He can sort of have his slump, in peace, or as much peace as you can have in a Canadian environment, right? But 68% rostered though, Kuzmenko. That's where we're like, what's this guy doing? Like in the last couple games, he does have 2 goals in 5 games, but the deployment stinks, right? He's got a 12-minute game in there, 11 minutes in the last game against Chicago. It's just that's not what you want to see. So I don't know, where are you at with Kuzmenko? Is this a guy you're keeping on your squad, or are you kicking him to the curb?
No, I don't think he does enough on a regular basis for me to roster in fantasy. But I have to admit, I think he's looked better in the past few games. No.
Yep. Oh, totally. More engaged, right? You
Yeah.
can tell the effort's there, but yeah, shoot the puck, my man.
So this is okay. So this is going back to the Jacques Martin thing. The reason Kuzmenko doesn't get ice time is because defensively and on the forecheck, he's not as good as Tocchet wants him to be.
Mhm.
So if you want to get more fantasy value out of Kuzmenko, you just got to hope he plays better defense on some nights, or forechecks better. And this goes back to the Sens. Maybe the guys are slumping because defensively they're not as structured, and if they get figured out, then they're more productive on offense. I don't think guys like Sam Lafferty or Phil DiGiuseppe are going to be in the top 6 all season. I think it's a problem if they are. So I think Kuzmenko may find his way back in the top 6 at some point. When he's taken off that power play unit, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
That's when you can freely drop him. Right now, you're still kind of hoping for a little bit because you watch him and he is a dangerous offensive player.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever going to get that shot total up because that's not his game. I think he's more of a dangler, more of a shifty poacher type player. So, but I mean, like you said, 1.4 is like 4th line grinder numbers, not a top 6 guy.
Yep. It's been rough watching Kuzi. Because this is a player I love. And I love his personality there. Just seems like such a beauty. And he's kind of taking this all in stride too, which I like.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Tocchet has come out and literally said, like, I need him to forecheck, like, period. Right. So that's one thing, again, going back to the Senators, Jacques Martin and Rick Tocchet and all these other coaching changes, like, they need to bring in accountability, right? And if you're not holding players accountable, like, then what do you got? You just got a free for all, right? You got chaos. So I think Tocchet is really holding Kuzmenko accountable, and it's not good for fantasy, but maybe it's good for Kuzmenko in the long run. Buddy,
Agreed.
go win a board battle. What are you doing? Come on, help us out. Okay, let's talk about one of your must drops. All right, if it works for your team.
Yeah. So this one's kind of interesting because Mike and I talked a little bit on sleepers keepers, and I just kind of want to expand on a little bit more. But Brent Burns on the Hurricanes, I mean, 91% rostered on Yahoo. I was shocked when I saw that, because this guy was on my do not draft list for the past few years now. But just seeing him being rostered in so many leagues when there's so many good young defensemen out there, it boggles my mind. Burns, he's old. He's not that fast anymore. Doesn't have the elite shot volume anymore. There's a lot of competition for minutes on that Canes blue line, and I hate taking fantasy players or players from Carolina in fantasy because they spread out the offense so much. It's hard to pinpoint one guy other than maybe Sebastian Aho or Svechnikov if he's healthy. So I just don't get the fascination with Burns other than that he's just a big name recognition guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. With a 91% roster to 92, damn, like, we need to look at that, right? And that some people can have that kind of, they'll hold on longer than they should, right?
Yeah.
Because he's 92% roster, but look at these numbers. I mean, he's not even getting power play 1 anymore, right?
Mhm.
Tony D'Angelo's taking power play 1, and that's not a good place to be, right? If Tony D is taking your power play minutes, like, it's time to start filling up water bottles, my man. All right. I'm sorry. I love Brent Burns. He's a great player. I wasn't high on Brent Burns, but I thought there was some value there going into the season, because first off, Carolina is they're an amazing team in terms of Corsi for, Corsi against. Like, they're number 1 in the league in both those metrics, and they're right up at the top again this year, and on the power play as well. So Brent Burns, one of the reasons I loved him going into the season, maybe not loved, but he's a big time shot generator from the back end, and those are defensemen that I covet. So what I didn't see happening was him not getting the power play deployment, and his minutes really kind of going downhill, right? Like, he's playing almost 2 minutes less per night, and that's not coming back, right? This is the player he is now. And in the past few games here, like, he just played a 18-minute, 47-second game. That's terrible. 91% rostered? No. So I feel like I'm right in line with you here. Like, if you need to drop Brent Burns to make your team better, I'm not going to hold that against you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the upside is here anymore. Like you said, he's not shooting. Like, last year is shots on goal per game, 3.1. This year, 2.3. Right. And if he's not on that power play where he does most of that shooting, like, it's not going to go back up. Right. So, I did have a healthy little projection for this man. I think I had him for 60 points or something like that. So, chalk that one up to,
I should add, though, like, even though I've been kind of down on him the past few seasons, last year he really surprised me. So I can understand why people are back on the Brent Burns wagon. But I think you watch him play and you look at his stat line now, I don't know how you can justify it. Even you talked about the Devils, even someone like Luke Hughes, I'd rather gamble on just for the upside. I know Luke Hughes isn't scoring a whole lot, but you watch him play, he's much more engaged. And I just think that on the Devils, again, a really good offensive team, that there's a lot of upside to be had with a younger defenseman.
I love that, actually. Luke Hughes over Brent Burns. Would you do it, everyone? Talk to us in the comments here. All right, talk to us. That's interesting to me. Because I think I'd go with you right there. Like, I mean, it's all upside, right? I think Brent Burns has a safer floor, but Luke Hughes is the quarterback for the number 1 power play in the league, and Dougie Hamilton, we don't know if and when he's coming back. And if he does, is he just going to bump Luke Hughes off the power play? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. And Luke Hughes, you look at him, like, he doesn't really shoot the puck a whole lot. There's not much in terms of peripherals. A bit of a power play merchant sometimes, but how can you argue with the upside on one of the top blue line prospects in the league playing with his brothers? There's built-in chemistry right there, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a semi-spicy take that I am here for. I agree with you. That's awesome. Let's move on. All right, we got to talk. I'm not going to talk too long on this man, but this man's a must drop, and he is a legit must drop. Jonathan Huberdeau. How the mighty have fallen. I mean, he's still 37% rostered. Like, that seems high to me. Okay, like, I just can't believe it. I've never seen anything like this in my years of covering fantasy and playing fantasy. Like, a guy to go from 115 points to 55, and then now he's pacing for 41. That makes no sense. And again, his metrics are down across the board. Like, he's doing even worse. And it just, obviously it's something to do with the team system, but this is a player I pegged for a bounce back. I think a lot of us did. I don't know where you
were. I did too.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't talking anything crazy, but I thought 70 points. Okay. Yep. Like, Huberdeau back to 70 points floor is kind of where I was at. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Now he's not even getting the ice time. He's not getting, a power play where he needs it. And it's a different coach. Right. Yeah. I thought the coach was the problem, and Daryl Sutter is a problem. He's a dingus, but like, I thought that, would kind of solve the problem, but I think there's something deeper going on with Jonathan Huberdeau. So anyways, we don't have to go too far into this, but yeah, Johnny Huberdeau does not need to be on a team right now. I would definitely keep an eye on him, because I do think that Huberdeau is an elite offensive player, but something's just not right. And it might be between his ears. I don't know, like, until he sort of gets right and gets some momentum going, gets his mojo going, like, this guy should be sitting on your waiver. I don't know. Anything to add there, Jason?
No, I completely agree with everything you said. I just think 37% of fantasy managers probably forgot that he was on their roster, just forgot to drop him.
Yeah, they just abandoned their teams. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. The 115 point season seems like the anomaly, but I thought he'd be like at least a 70 point player, something around there. But you watch him play, and it's also uninspiring. And there's guys on the Flames that have just leapfrogged him. Like, Conazeri, to me, looks better than him most nights.
Yeah, he looks good. And who's this other guy? I call him the Popsicle because I can't pronounce his last name, but yeah, there you go. I mean, this guy's pretty good. He got a goal tonight. So I don't know. They have some interesting players there. But yeah, what is going on in Calgary? It just doesn't seem like a fun place to play. I was glad to see Jacob Markstrom come back tonight. I haven't checked the scores, but it's things. They're kind of like Carolina, like high Corsi for, low Corsi against, but they got terrible goaltending from Markstrom last season. And then, this season, it just, again, terrible luck. So something stinks in Calgary, and Jonathan Huberdeau, you need to change your socks. All right, buddy, change the socks, get a haircut, and get out there and put some, just sauce some passes. Let's go. All right, tell me about another player who you were thinking is a must drop here.
Well, just to add on that, Calgary Flames just beat the Panthers 3-1. Markstrom 33 saves, Pospisil with the opening goal. So there you go.
Love it. Love it.
The other player that I'm not really high on is Pierre-Luc Dubois. I know he's kind of lost his luster in fantasy, and people have been dropping in, and I'm on that wagon. Mm-hmm. When this player is engaged, he is really good. When he doesn't have to be engaged, as he is in LA because they got so many other good players, he's just not very good. I know that the Kings like to sort of split their power play, but I'm not very high on the second unit, because to me, only Kaliev and Trevor Moore are kind of the dangerous guys on the power play. I'm starting to think that Philip Deneau is actually the better center, and Dubois should be the matchup guy, which is weird to say because Deneau's been the matchup guy forever.
Yep.
I've no doubt that Dubois at some point is going to go on a hot streak, but to me in fantasy, he's just too unreliable. The ceiling just isn't that high for me. The weird thing today that I saw when I was looking at his advanced stats too is his IPP. It's really high. That makes me wonder, like, his point totals is low, but his IPP is high. So he's just not getting enough play time, or is he just getting unlucky, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah. It is strange. Like, obviously he's kind of one of the better players on his line. Like, who's he playing with right now? Just looking this up here. He's out there with Arthur Kaliev and Alex Laferriere. So
yeah, Laferriere is a bit of a meat and potatoes kind of guy, and Kaliev's still coming into his own. So it's not a high upside offensive line, which I think caps Dubois' upside. And Deneau playing with Kevin Fiala, one of the most underrated playmakers in the league, and Trevor Moore. That line to me just is more like a second line, and Dubois is the matchup guy.
Yeah, that's a nasty line. I'm total agreements with you there. The thing about PLD is when he was with Winnipeg, he was relied on to be more of an offensive player,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is not the case here. They don't need him to do that. And when I watch him out there, I don't get like a disinterested vibe or anything like that, but I feel like they're asking him to do something different. They're asking him to play a
Fair
different
enough.
kind of game, which for fantasy, that show ain't no good. All right. Like, yeah, like we're not, this is not what you maybe hoped for with PLD because last season, 71-point pace with the Jets. This season, 36-point pace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's still 49% rostered or whatever it is on Yahoo. So I think this is absolutely PLD's become a streamer, right?
Yeah.
I thought while he was still on power play 1, you would want to hold him, but it's Quentin Byfield's season. Right. This guy bumped him off the power play. And I don't think that's coming back. Right.
No.
Byfield's been great. He looks awesome out there and he deserves that ice time. So, PLD is probably a better player in real life than he is in fantasy at these days. And he's not even really hitting anymore. So it's just, and all the things that kept his floor solid are kind of gone away, aren't they?
Yeah. Like I said, when he wants to be, he can be a really good player. Offensively, probably capped around 70 points, something like that.
Yep.
But he does so many things well. I just think, his ice time is way down. His usage is obviously very different. I just not really high on him as a fantasy player for the rest of the season.
Yep. No, I'm absolutely with you. PLD, thank you for your service, my man. Now get the hell out of my sight. All right. We don't need you over here. We got Byfield. All right. Sorry, I don't know. I'm just, yeah. Again, PLD, big listener to the show. He knows I'm joking. All right. PLD, just kidding, buddy. All right. That's all we got. That is it for our show. I love the stuff that you brought here, Jason. I'm so appreciative that you came on the show and, generous with your time. So thank you so much for that. Before I let you go, I want to just give you the floor to sort of plug anything you got going on here and, tell the people where we can find you.
Yeah, no, thank you again, Blake, for having me on your show. You guys are prolific fantasy hockey podcasters. You guys do a great job. I love the energy that you bring. As far as my stuff, you can always find me on Twitter or X at JasonChen16. You can always send me questions. I'm usually pretty responsive. If you want to find the stuff online, it's at thehockeynews.com/NHL/fantasy. Sleepers and Keepers with Mike Amato. Beauty of a guy, as you said. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or wherever you find your podcast. I'm sure there's many channels you can go through. But yeah, the fantasy hockey community is great. We appreciate all you guys who are in the fantasy hockey group creating all sorts of content, and the people who follow us. Thank you so much. It's been great, Blake. Thank you again for having me.
Buddy. This guy jacks you up. Oh my God. This is inspiring stuff, Jason. I'll tell you what, we're taking over. Fantasy hockey we're no longer the redheaded stepchild. We're going to battle with the big boys. All right. We're getting the biz. But yeah, like you said, I love this fantasy hockey community and there's so much good content out there and everybody's bringing different angles. So I love what you guys are doing over there at Sleepers and Keepers. So keep that going. You got to go over there, give them a subscribe, give them a review. Come on, get the biz. All right. These guys are crushing. So anyways, thank you, Jason, for your service. And thank you, listeners, for your service. All right. This is, I've been having so much fun. This might be the last. Yeah, this will be the last cream of the crop before the holidays. So everybody, I wish you all the best in your holidays. I hope you have an amazing time with your family or whatever you do. That's amazing stuff. And to you too, Jason, I want you to have a great holiday there. You got any plans for the holidays or what?
I got some family visiting from Seattle, so that's nice. But happy holidays to you too. Happy holidays to your little ones.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I did get like Christmas burnout for myself before I had kids. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, yeah, we'll put the tree up on the 23rd. We'll take it down on the 26th. Well, that's fine. But now with little kids, man, it just gets awesome again. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. This is actually probably my favorite holiday. The only thing I can't stand is Christmas music. I cannot stand it.
You know what? I can't even get mad at you on that. You know what? Like there's some, I like oldies. Give me some Nat King Cole or give me a couple of those things like Bing
good
Crosby.
Choice.
But dude, and I got to shout out Michael Bublé as well. Michael Bublé, give me some Michael Bublé, but Mariah Carey, no. All right, please stop singing the song. All right. Oh, you know what I really hate is what I'm just going off on a tangent here, but when like new artists go back and do a Christmas album, and then we have to hear that. It's like, stop. All right,
Yeah.
please
I
just
will
stop.
I will say this about Mariah Carey. At least her voice is good. There's some pop artists who produce Christmas albums and it's not good at all on any level. But I'm with you. Throw on something different. Throw on an oldie. My mom is a big Nat King Cole fan, so I'm with you there.
Sweet, Jason. Actually, maybe you and I we'll do a little duet. We'll take it offline. We'll get a duet. We'll record it. We'll release it on the pod feed. Are you down with
Put me
this?
on mute. You can sing. I need to be put on mute.
Oh, dang. Okay. Well, all right. Well, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. Look for that in the new year, everybody. Jason and Blake duet. Thanks again for being here, Jason. Really appreciate it. Talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon, everybody. Thank you so much for your service, and we'll talk to you later. Enjoy your holidays. Celebrate your day. Bye for now.